Okay, guys, so here the notes are, the last ones you'll have for me. I've got it on the notes there so you can pause it, copy them all down if you'd like. So pause it now and copy them. And here we go. Hey, okay, so let's get ready. Civil rights for African Americans, for the Times 2 put down that it starts basically the 1950s. All right? So that's 1950s, it begins. Obviously it goes all the way back to the end of slavery, 1865, the end of Civil War, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. So in a way, this is kind of like Civil Rights Movement Part 2. So one big reason civil rights improved for African Americans was Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier in Major League Baseball. MLB is Major League Baseball. Jackie played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Everywhere he went, people were yelling racist, terrible things to him and his wife, who was watching in the stands. He had promised Branch Ritchie, the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers, that he would keep his cool, he would hold it in, he would not get angry and swear back, and it took its toll. Jackie basically developed an ulcer. He got prematurely gray hair. It was really tough for him, obviously, especially when they're saying stuff to his wife and he's got to listen to all of that as he's up to bat. He won World Series. He was MVP. Think about it. The only black guy in the major leagues. And he goes to places down south. Even Philadelphia was one of the most... The manager for the Philadelphia Phillies would stand at the dugout and yell stuff while he was hitting. So, in my opinion, I've mentioned it before, sports and music, I think, have done more to help with civil rights and to bring people together in America than any law. So Jackie Robinson, hey, who's your favorite baseball player? Jackie Robinson. What? He's a colored guy. So, he's amazing. And even in the 1980s and 1990s, Michael Jordan for the Chicago Bulls really helped the way people are treated. He was the person, the sports figure. Muhammad Ali. These African-American sports figures have really, really helped, equality in the world and in America. Okay. Let's see a quick video about Jackie. Here we go.
Born January 31st, 1919, in Cairo, Georgia, Jack Roosevelt Robinson was the youngest of 5 siblings. He followed his older brother Mac into athletics.
Mac went off and he competed in the 1936 Olympics. This is an athlete who had won a medal under the eye of Adolf Hitler. He came back to Pasadena, and Mac Robinson could only find work as a garbage man. That's something that Jackie Robinson never forget.
Robinson was a star athlete at Pasadena Junior College and became the first UCLA student to win varsity letters in 4 sports: basketball, football, track, and baseball.
He was a local tennis champion. He was a local football.
Did you get that, guys? All 4 sports in University of Southern California, USC, one of the best colleges in America for sports. 4 sports. Now people just specialize. That's crazy.
He was a great track star. Jackie Robinson, baseball was really almost the last thing he was great at. He was great at everything. He could have done anything.
While in the Army, Robinson was arrested for refusing to move to the back of a segregated bus. Robinson fought a court-martial and was eventually given an honorable discharge.
Jackie Robinson was sick and tired of the U.S. Army, and the U.S. Army felt that they had a problem on their hands with Lieutenant Robinson, so they agreed that he would be honorably discharged.
With the Negro Leagues as his only opportunity to play professional baseball, Robinson joined the Kansas City Monarchs in 1945. That same year, he was given a life-changing invitation by Branch Rickey of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
There were players in the Negro League that were just as good, if not better, than Jackie Robinson. But Branch Rickey understood that he needed more than just a superb baseball player. He needed someone who had flawless and impeccable character, and he found that person in Jackie.
He was not going to lose his temper.
Despite harsh opposition, Robinson was selected as the first Rookie of the Year, became the first man in the league in 26 years to steal his way around the bases, and in 1955, he helped the Brooklyn Dodgers win the World Series against the New York Yankees.
The valor with which Jackie Robinson responded to the jeers and the hatred and the bigoted remarks and the catcalls is one of the great silent portraits in American history. Under that hail of threats and epithets, he would walk into the batter's box. And about a little over the third of the time, because I believe he batted a 330-something that year, he'd get a hit. That's what he did. He certainly didn't cower. He certainly didn't flinch, and there were a lot of beanballs thrown at him.
Jackie Robinson wasn't just a great symbol. He was a great baseball player. He led the Brooklyn Dodgers to 6 pennants when he was there. This is the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Okay, so I hope you understand what they mean by beanball. They were throwing the ball at his head, his face, trying to hit him, trying to hurt him. And he kept on playing. Okay, there we go. So that's Jackie Robinson. The Korean War. Integrated soldiers. Harry Truman was president. Put that for the times two. Harry Truman was president. He said, remember he was when we decided to drop the 2 bombs on Japan. So he said, we fought Hitler, who was so racist, with the segregated army, segregated military. So the Korean War and soldiers fighting together, black, white, people come home. Hey, how was it? It was fine. He was a great guy to fight with. What? Hey, don't you say anything negative about him. It's my brother. He's not your brother. He doesn't even look like you. So the bond soldiers get when they're together fighting, I've read where it's like no other bond, because you're literally dependent on that person for your life to stay alive. So for people of different races fighting together and feeling that bond, that was huge for the civil rights. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Okay. Linda Brown, this is in Topeka, Kansas, so put that for times 4. Topeka, Kansas. Linda Brown wanted to go to a white school close to her. She was a colored student. And they said, no, you can't go there. You got to go to this one 20 blocks away. But this one's only 4 blocks away. Her father talked to her, said, look, there's this group called the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Write that down. National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. This NAACP group would like to take a court case, would like to start a court case to get rid of Plessy versus Ferguson. Remember Plessy versus Ferguson? Homer had to sit on the back of the train, right? Supreme Court, 1896, said segregation is legal, separate but equal. Of course, it was not equal. But Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, segregation is legal. The Supreme Court said it. So all the way 1954, what is that, 58 years later, Linda Brown says, I'm going to this school. Thank goodness this amazing lawyer at NAACP had named Thurgood Marshall, who, by the way, became the first African-American Supreme Court judge later on after this case, a few decades later. He did this famous survey. He had a white doll and he had a black doll. And he'd bring it to kids. Here we go. They looked exactly the same. And he would bring these dolls to kids and say, here, why don't you play with these dolls? And they'd sit behind a mirror and watch the kids play. And then afterwards they go, hey, Billy, we saw that you only played with the white doll. You didn't play with the colored doll at all. Why did you only play with the white doll? Because it's better. Excuse me? The white doll's better. Why? I don't know, it just is. Like 98% of the kids that they surveyed and tested, they all wanted to play with the white doll. Even black kids. The black kids wanted to play with the white doll. Susie, why are you playing only with the white doll? Because it's better. But this one looks more like you, Susie. I would think that you would want to play with this one. No. Everybody knows that white is better. He brought those results to the Supreme Court and said, you are going to tell me that separate but equal is working? Separate but equal is not working in this country. People feel like this is good and this is bad. Obviously segregating people, having schools for colored people and white people and playgrounds, they're not even equal anyway, but even if they were, if you make people think that they can't be with other people, you're making them feel inferior. You're making these white people think that they're inferior, that they're better than these people. We have to get rid of this segregation. We have to overturn Plessy versus Ferguson. And that's what they did. Probably one of our biggest Supreme Court cases ever. So put that down, 1954, U.S. Supreme Court overturns Plessy versus Ferguson. You cannot have segregation in public facilities. Make sure you underline public. Public facilities. Private golf courses, private this, private that. Mayor David Dinkins in the 1990s, or late 80s, early 90s, he was the mayor of New York City. He tried to go up to Westchester and play golf. I'm sorry, Mayor, you can't play here. Excuse me? 1990s. So that still goes on. So remember, private can still have segregation. The Masters Golf Tournament, they never had a black member until like 2000 when people started protesting, being upset with it, showing, we're not going to play in this tournament anymore. So make sure you underline public tournaments. Okay, let's watch this.
On May 17, 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court issued its landmark decision in the case of Brown versus Board of Education. The court ruled unanimously that racial segregation
unanimously means everybody, all 9 judges.
Clause of the 14th Amendment.
Equal Protection Clause, remember that one, 14th Amendment.
Out of several cases that challenged racial segregation in schools across America. Because the lawsuits addressed the same legal questions, the Supreme Court consolidated them into one case. Its lead plaintiff was Oliver Brown. He sued
There's Linda.
the Pico, Kansas Board of Education.
There's Linda.
On behalf of his daughter, Linda. She was a black public school student who lived just a few blocks from an elementary school in Topeka. However, she was forced to travel over an hour to reach the all-black school she was assigned to attend.
Oh my God.
When she tried to enroll in the closer neighborhood school, which was all white, the request was denied. In the U.S. Supreme Court, Brown was represented by NAACP lawyer Thurgood Marshall.
Yes, there he is. He became Supreme Court judge.
Segregated schools were harmful and left black children with feelings of inferiority. The court unanimously decided in Brown's favor.
Thank God.
Declaring that separate educational facilities were, without exception, unequal. Chief Justice Earl Warren declared that, quote, in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. And while it didn't happen...
Okay. Good. All right, let me just peek to make sure it's still good. Okay, next. Emmett Till is killed. Emmett Till was, I think he was a 14-year-old kid from, black guy from Chicago. He's going to go down to Mississippi to visit his relatives during the summer. And this is 1955. Put that for the times three, 1955. Emmett Till. He was one of these guys that liked to, very social. Not like me, not introverted like me and maybe some of you. Most of you are pretty social from what I remember in class. So he used to like to flirt. In Chicago, he would flirt with all girls. Colored, sorry, but that's what they said then. Colored, Hispanic, white girls. And nobody told him he couldn't do that in Mississippi. So he goes down in Mississippi. He whistles at a white girl. And next thing you know, the white girl's father, is pulling him out of, I think, his uncle's house where he was staying. His uncle was a pastor. In the middle of the night, they take him out of the house. They bring him out in their truck, and they kill him. And then they tie him up to an old rusty fan, huge fan, these industrial fans, and throw him in the water, tie him up to the fan, throw it in the water. And what do you think? Remember, you couldn't really vote back then if you were not white down in Mississippi. This is 1950s. What do you think the jury's going to find? Not guilty. Not only that, but at the funeral, the mother says, leave the casket open. What, Mrs. Till, your son, his face is disfigured. It was in that water all those days before they found your son's body, his face. Keep it open. I want the whole world to see what they did to my boy. And really, let's just be honest about it. This happened all the time to people down south. Okay? Thousands and thousands of lynchings, thousands of deaths that nobody ever really talked about or never made the newspapers. But thank goodness there was a photographer from Jet magazine, which is kind of an African American magazine that's still around. He takes a picture of Emmett in the casket, and people just saw that picture and said, this is it. It was just, so in a way, I remember LeBron James mentioning it a while back. He said, let's just have some silence. This is the day Emmett Till was killed. In a way, this was one of the spark for the Civil Wars, because people saw this picture of Emmett and said, no more. Anger coming out. I'm tired of putting my head down when they pass by me. This was a spark. So put that down for here. That's very important. Here's the picture. Don't look if you don't want to. Here's the picture of Emmett in the casket before he came to Mississippi and after he came to Mississippi. Please don't look if you feel like it's too much. I'm not making you see this. This is him in the casket. His mom said, I want everybody to see that. This is Emmett, the famous picture of Emmett. Okay? So this was the spark that started, one of the sparks that started the civil rights movement. Emmett Till is killed in Mississippi because he whistled at a white girl. Not only that, guys, but the guys that did it were acquitted. And once they're acquitted, they can't be retried. A few months later, they get $4,000 from Life magazine to talk about how they did it. You can look it up, Google it. Emmett Till's killers discuss how they killed him. You're going to kill somebody, you're going to have to go to jail, and now you're going to get paid to talk about it? So you can understand why people were really angry about it. Okay, so that's Emmett Till. famous, you should all know, any educated American needs to know about Emmett Till. All right. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King protest. Rosa Parks, a lot of people think Rosa Parks was a tired old woman coming back from work in Montgomery, Alabama. And when they told her to sit on the back of the bus where the colored folks sit, she just, no, I'm not gonna anymore. No, she was young. I think she was in her 30s. She had already worked for the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Remember that one? It's still around, still very big. So she, it's not the thing where I was just, she was already an activist. That's the point. Rosa Parks was already an activist trying to get help for African Americans, try to get civil rights for African Americans. Okay? So she's on the bus, and when she gets into the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, make sure you put that down, Montgomery, Alabama. You got to know that for the test. In Montgomery, Alabama, as she goes up to the bus, she looks at the bus driver, and she sees that it's the same bus driver that almost killed her a few years earlier. She tried to get on the bus, and he slammed the door on her, and she was barely able to get her leg out before he drove off. So she's probably got a little anger there. She's seeing this is the guy that almost killed her. She sits on the bus, and the way it works is they've got these signs up, colored section, where they kind of stick to the top, the side of the bus, where they have advertisements and stuff. So when she got on, she was in the correct spot. She was in the colored section. But the way they did it was the more white people came on the bus driver would get up and move the colored section back even further. So they end up, the colored people end up standing in back by themselves, right? So think about it. She's in the correct section. She is tired. It's getting late. More white people get on. So the bus driver gets up, the one that almost killed her earlier, takes the sign, puts it behind Emma. Excuse me, ma'am, you gotta get in back like everybody else. Your con. I'm not getting up. Ma'am, if you don't get up, I'm going to have to arrest you. The famous quote. Stuff is touching. To be able to stand up for what's right is so moving. I hope you guys feel how brave she was. Because for all she knows, she could end up in a tree hanging too. All right? Well, you're just going to have to arrest me then. Excuse me? I said, you're just going to have to arrest me then. The bus driver stops the bus, pulls over, goes to a payphone. Remember, no cell phones back then. This is 1950s. I don't think it's any coincidence that this is a year after Emmett Till is killed. I've got a problem here. I'm going to need some police. I got some blanky blank that ain't getting off the bus and going to the back of the bus. So she's arrested. And because she was arrested, the African American community started boycotting the buses. And this is where Martin Luther King became famous. He happened to be a pastor. He was a great speaker. Usually pastors are good speakers. They're able to get their church unified and behind them. And Martin Luther King ended up helping with the bus boycott, and that's when he became famous. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, did the bus boycott work? Now when people boycott, I remember Woodstock, people were boycotting some store, CVS, coming up because they didn't want a CVS. We're boycotting, nobody buy from CVS. We don't want these big chains in Woodstock. Usually now when people boycott or stuff, it lasts a week or two. The African American community did not take a bus for almost a year. Think about it. Walking miles to work, taking bicycle miles to work. For almost a year, they boycotted these buses in Montgomery, Alabama. Who do you think won? Thank goodness the African American community won, because it all had to do with money. Remember money. One of the big answers in history is money. the government was losing so much money because of the boycott. They said, all right, just let them sit wherever they want. What? We're losing so much money because this boycott. The buses are like only 5-6 people on them. We're going to have to start laying off the bus drivers. Just let them sit where they want. No, we got segregation. Not on buses. Let them. So it was a big victory. Imagine how happy you were. You've been boycotting for a year and you get the news that you can sit in the front of the bus. Jasmine always likes to sit in the front of the bus. If we take the bus to the city, she likes to sit in front. It's amazing that we take stuff like that for granted, but so that was huge. Okay? Let's see this.
Born the eldest of 2 children in 1913, Rosa Louise Macaulay was raised on her grandparents' farm in Pine Level, Alabama. As a child, Rosa was exposed to the realities of segregation. She walked to school daily because the elementary school bus system prohibited black students from riding. Rosa later attended the Alabama State Teachers College High School. However, due to both her grandmother and mother's illnesses, she was forced to drop out. At 19, Rosa met Raymond Parks, who worked with Montgomery's NAACP chapter.
Yep.
After their marriage in 1932, and much encouragement, she earned her high school diploma. Rosa joined Raymond in the NAACP, serving as the chapter's secretary and youth leader.
Nice.
History is peculiar. It places gifted and talented women and men in situations where they must make a choice. The choice she made was on the afternoon of the 1st of December, 1955, on a bus as she was going home from her seamstress job in a department store in Montgomery, Alabama.
Rosa, along with 3 other black passengers, were told to give up their seats to a white male passenger. She refused and was arrested. An all-day bus boycott was organized on the day of Rosa's trial, December 5th, 1955, where she was fined $14 and found guilty.
She was a role model for courage in the face of racial injustice. Rosa Parks, through her quiet eloquence, through her commitment both to her faith and to the cause of civil rights and racial equality, was prepared to sacrifice everything, her security, even her life, to fight for what was right, at least her perception of what was justice.
Life. Do you guys get that?
Thousands of people walked.
When you're protesting down south, then you're putting your life on the line.
381 days with a 26-year-old Reverend Martin Luther King.
381, it was more than a year.
Rosa was not the first person to refuse to give up her seat. 2 other women were previously arrested for the same offense. However, it was this quiet 42-year-old who became the face.
42, I thought she was 30s. 42, she looks young.
In 1956, groundbreaking history was made.
The Supreme Court decision by a 9-0 vote supported the civil rights position, calling for an end to racial segregation on municipal buses.
Yes.
Unable to find work, largely due to her political stance, the Parks moved north to Detroit, Michigan, and by 1965, Rosa began to work for Congressman John Conyers until 1988 when she retired. In memory of her husband and in her vision for a better tomorrow, Rosa co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development, which educates young people on the civil rights movement, gives freedom bus tours, and provides youth with professional guidance. Rosa also worked giving lectures and advocating for social justice.
Love it. I love it. Okay? She's a hero, guys. We need heroes to look up to. Jackie Robinson, Rosa Parks. Great heroes. I used to love reading these biographies about these guys. I think that's why I'm a history teacher. They were my heroes, a lot of these guys. Okay, Little Rock 9, speaking of heroes, Little Rock, Arkansas. Even after Linda Brown, Board of Ed, 1954, even after that, Supreme Court did not say, you must have integrated schools by next year. They used the famous term, by all deliberate speed, okay? By all deliberate speed, meaning, whenever, as fast as you can. It was 3 years later and Arkansas schools were still segregated. So finally, all right, we need 9 of our best students. You're going to go over to the high school next year. Think about you. If you were an African American in Arkansas in 1957, would you volunteer? Okay, I'll go to the white school. It's the Little Rock 9, they're called. Famous group. Little Rock 9. Gifted, honor roll students. I'll go. They go first day with their ties, but they got the call. No, the mayor, the governor of Arkansas is not letting us in. What? Don't go. But Elizabeth Eckford, African American girl, she didn't get the call. She didn't know that she was not supposed to go. So here's Elizabeth Eckford, African American girl, getting off the bus, walking to go to this white high school. And the taunts and these white people had African American dolls on ropes. The militia was there. Just her walk. Thank goodness some white guy came over to her because it was